Hello to all the Atlanta United fans. My name is Jurgen Damm, and you are watching Scarves and Spike, an Atlanta United podcast.
Welcome everybody to Scarves and Spikes on I was going to say a sulking Sunday, but we're going to take it a positive thing, Gray. We're going to call it, we did not lose on Saturday, Sunday. How was that?
I'll take it. Oh my gosh. When we were going into this weekend, I was thinking, what's the over under on the goals that we're going to give up against Columbus and Miami? And so are we going to break 10 this weekend? And luckily, we're holding off until October before we find that out.
Yeah, exactly what PSG did to Miami today was what I thought Miami was going to do to us.
Absolutely.
And I mean, and exactly was when I was looking at the schedule, I said, that's exactly the thing I'm scared of here is you're going to Columbus, which you historically have been extremely bad at since the new stadium's open. I think one win since Lord.com field open. And then you're going to Miami, where Miami would like to make as much revenge as they can on us for kicking them out of the playoffs. But instead, they got absolutely rocked by PSG today. I didn't get a chance to watch it. I was at a nerd con all day, and Tyler was messaging me, giving me updates, and I'm just saying 1-0, 2-0, 3-0. I'm like, really? And 4-0. I'm like, oh. What was the final score 4-0?
Yeah, PSG had a little mercy on them in the second half. It could have easily been 8-0 by the end of it, and they didn't go for it in the second half.
Yeah, and why need it?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to talk about the game, and let's give it up for Gray here because Gray went back and watched the second half today, knowing how this game ended. He said, he told me a couple days ago that he only watched the first half, and I said, well, that's really the only half that we have to talk about here. But the dedication of this guy to then go and rewatch the second half there and listen to the commentary, because I did not get a chance to listen. And he's going to talk a little bit about what they were talking about at Atlanta. But yeah, so let's talk about the game. I was there. We started heading down, and just like Columbus, always Columbus's, it was raining before the game. There was talks of delay. They kicked the fans out of the outside part of the stadium. There was no lightning. There was just a lot of heavy rain early on, but it cleared up right before the start of the game. No delays at all. So that was nice that there was no delay. There was a delay today in Columbus, though. They got to play the half, and then there was a lengthy delay from there. But then the game started, and I really wish it didn't start because that might have been one of the worst first halves that I think I've ever seen from an Atlanta United team.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just no defense, and I understand with what you're going through with now being without Gregerson, and then losing Derek Williams. But you messaged me one of the lines there about what the commentary said. If you wanna say that line there.
Yeah. It was about the 50th minute. The commentary team were talking about the very young back line that Atlanta United fielded with Matthew Edwards and Efren Morales making up 2/3 of that center back group. And they were talking about how when you've got a young group like that, a group that, they were saying Edwards and Morales are going to have bright careers ahead of them. You need to have a veteran to lead that group to help position and ensure that those young guys are able to play to their strengths and are able to succeed and aren't just being thrown into the deep end of the pool. And I think the insinuation there was that Brahm was not giving them the same kind of leadership that they specifically said Williams would have if he was there. And I thought that was a really interesting take from the commentary team. Because really, I mean, Morales got put in what I believe is one of the most challenging positions in that kind of a formation, where you've got the guy who sets up the entire the entire offensive play. You're the hinge for the entire formation, and it's up to him not only to make the right decisions and read the field in front of him, but he's got to execute. He's got to connect those passes, and the guys around him need to be able to support him there. And so for a guy like Busquets, who can play that between, the defensive midfielder or dropping between into that central center back role at times, you see guys who make a career out of that. And I think Morales one day might be able to, but we saw a lot of growing pains in the first half as he was getting his first minutes of the year.
Do you think Brahm could be that guy?
To lead the other guys, or to I mean, he hasn't shown it yet. I think you've seen Williams, what he doesn't have in terms of mobility, he does have as an organizer for the rest of the back line. And I understand that's why the commentators were specifically calling him out as a big missing piece there. But I'm not sure if that's a role that Brahm really plays all that much, or if he is actively creating for this group. And you saw, the left side of the defense especially just getting eaten alive there in the first half. And I'm not sure that if you're going to play those two young guys there, if a Brahm is the right fit alongside them.
Well, and there's, I mean, Gregerson, I don't think we really have an ETA on his return.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been quite some time that he's been out, and Derek Williams is going to be out here for a while there. So you don't have any reinforcements here. And like you said with Brahm, because I feel the same way. Like, I don't think Brahm's really that guy. I mean, he's had a few good games under Atlanta United, but really being a standout and a leader just does not seem like that's it for them. So, which is, I mean, it's okay when you have your other two guys there, but you don't now, and now you're going into, is it DC this week?
Yep,
I think it's
DC, and then Toronto.
And Benteke did return this weekend, subbed in late in the game there. Could this get ugly? Could this not be? Because we looked at the schedule here and we didn't know what the status of Benteke was, but we said, okay, this road trip ends on a better note. Well, DC did lose to Nashville. Nashville 1-0. Well, they were on rest and Nashville was not. And then Toronto won, I believe, 3-0 at home.
Wow.
So how bad can this get? I guess that's the question that we've been asking this, and we did not at that time. We did not know that Miami was going to be canceled. So we didn't know that at the time, which is fine. But now you've got the two easier games here. I still question how there's a chance that Ronnie could still be the coach potentially at the end of this road trip.
Well, to close out the conversation on the defense really quickly before we dive into that other aspect of it, the other point that the commentators made that I thought was very interesting is that, theoretically, our first choice back line is a four-man back line of Amador, Williams, Gregerson, and Lennon. And apparently that group has only played together once this year.
Wow.
That's not going to lead to a very successful season. And luckily we've had the depth to have some kind of a defensive, backfield for this. But um, yeah, I mean that's putting your coach in a really difficult decision, and I think he hasn't necessarily made the best choice every single time in terms of fielding the group that he has. But um, I'm really curious to see how we do with younger players in these next couple of games, because you saw the difference between the first and the second half when Will Riley came out there. He
Yeah.
brought a level of energy, but also a ferocity on defense and a relentless pressure going forward. And I think, I mean, you saw some of his energy going forward sparking something in Almiron in that second half as well, where the two of them combining on the left side of the field actually created some of the really good chances we had between the 55th and the 65th minute. And so we were almost tied 3-3 if a couple of chances had been executed. And
Latte Lots, a great chance there in the second
yeah,
half.
yeah, and Moranchuk not being sure whether he was shooting or trying to play it into the head of Latte Lath on the first opportunity there. And so I think this is a consistent refrain that we've seen this year, where if we were just executing these great chances we were getting, I think you and I would be having a very different conversation. Because I think the adjustment at the half worked. It just didn't get us the result that we needed. And so I'm curious if we can start with a group that is playing the guys who are really playing with fire, who have momentum right now, the younger guys, rewarding them and seeing how they do in these next couple of matches. I think we may see growth. I'm not saying that we'll take away 6 points. I'm not saying we'll take away 4 points, but I think we might come away from the game feeling like we weren't absolutely annihilated like we were in the first half against Columbus.
I've loved watching Riley. I mean, we've seen limited minutes, but it should continue to get better. The question is can he start?
Yeah. That's a good question. I mean, he started against Cincinnati, and for his first appearance, having to cover Evander for that entire match, I thought he did as well as you could expect a guy making his first start to do. And the match at NYCFC, that was a weird match for everybody. That certainly is one that he's going to look to learn from and grow from. But when you've got a guy coming on at the half, that's almost like getting a fresh start there. And we saw him playing hard for 45 minutes. And I think he deserves the start. I frankly don't want to see starting midfield of Moranchuk, Slish, and Kleek again, for the rest of this year. I think that proved very quickly to be far too slow, far too similar, and frankly, just lacking the dynamism that you need. We were really missing Fortune there, and I think Riley did his best to replicate what Fortune is able to do. And so I think, unless Muyumba's able to go, I think the next midfield needs to be Moranchuk, Riley, and Slish.
There was a moment, I believe it was with Slish, and it was in the second half. Maybe it was when they were reviewing the goal, but there was a point where I think Brad Guzan kind of pushed Slish. Am I thinking of the wrong player there? But do you know what I'm talking about? There was a confrontation there around midfield.
Mm-hmm. Well, you bringing that moment up actually just reminded me that Slish is not available for the next match. After all, there is the yellow card accumulation that came into play, and so I am curious. Brad pushes everybody. That's just kind of what Brad does. That's his on-field teaching, methodology is pushing and screaming. But I don't know. I'll have to go back and look at that just to see exactly what that was. But that is a good point. We aren't going to have Sleesh there, so hopefully Muyomba's available, because I don't think we're going to have the defensive group in the midfield that we need if it's Kalik, Riley, and Moranchuk.
And then going in, especially with Benteke, you're going to need as much help as you get to be able to keep the ball away from him. And we know last year he got a hat trick against us.
Against Cobb. He didn't against Morales in the next match. Morales shut him down.
Yeah. So on the road, can you get it done? We'll find out there. But yeah, the moment I was talking about it, and I think it was like right around that time, I remember I was like standing right around midfield. We were going to see some friends, and there was a moment when you could see Brad push him aside. So because I think there was quite a few times where the entire team was like huddled around the ref. And I don't really know. I mean, I haven't really seen it like enforced as much as not the captain or the assistant captain if your captain is a keeper on there. But I don't know how much like often they really reinforce that rule there. But Brad was not taking a chance at it and like just almost pushed him out of the way. I was like, okay. But like people that don't know who Brad is, like all the Columbus fans were like, the hell is happening here? Well, why do what's going on here?
Yeah.
And it's just like it would be so just Atlanta United right now, just to get like into a huge brawl with themselves. Like you see that in movies where they fight there. But I do find that Brooks Lennon goal that review was so insanely long. And we were on that side of the stadium there talking to some people, and like you could clearly see there, oh, that's a goal. Like this should not take longer than 2 minutes to review, and that was a good 5 minute, I think, review. It felt like it.
Yeah. So there were a few things that the broadcast was talking about for that. They were making sure the ball didn't go over the end line as the initial cross came in, that it stayed in play the whole time, which it did. They were also making sure that when Edwards was claiming the ball from the goalkeeper, that the goalkeeper didn't have control of it at that time. And I think there were a couple of things else that they were speculating they were looking at, but I'm with you. That was clear and obvious from the beginning, and should have only taken a few seconds for them to confirm.
Yeah. My last question for you, because I think he stood out at times, maybe not for the best, but what did you think of Latte Lott's game on Wednesday?
Yeah. I think if he finishes that goal, I think we'd be a lot happier with him. I think he continues to push the defense. He occupies the center backs and is trying to use his speed to get in behind. And for whatever reason, it's just not working for him. There's some kind of a block there. And I don't know if he's if he's cursed or if he needs a new routine or something. But he's a guy who desperately needs a goal to go in to start this, because it feels like if he gets one, then he'll start believing again, and he'll start bagging tons of goals going forward after
that. We do have breaking news here on Scarves and Spikes. The United States won in penalties in the sixth round.
Wow.
The fifth round, they both missed. Tolkien missed.
Wow.
And then Damian Downs won it for the U.S. So I hope I'm not spoiling anything for anyone. But that was a fun game. It was an interesting game. The USA looked actually pretty good for a lot of it, but still some mental breakdowns there. But anyways, so yeah, I mean, look, I look at that first half and just I understand of the midfield is still a mess, and that is not. We will see if they will try to fix it by this season, but I don't really see them being able to do that until the off season.
Yeah.
I, I don't see many changes happening with that. Now, on the center back situation there with Derek Williams, does he have is this an option year for him?
So Abram and Williams are on option years. I think Morales is also on an option. He's got one more year, and Edwards and Cobb are also in the middle of their homegrown option series as well. But they're more than likely going to be picked up. Gregerson's the only one who's locked up long term. He's guaranteed.
Who's also injured long term.
Yeah, he's guaranteed through 2027 with an option for 2028. You were talking about the midfield. It's a similar kind of thing there where really, Riley and Fortune are the two guys who have options, which are not.
Which you're picking. I mean, obviously you're keeping both of them.
Yeah, obviously you're keeping both of those guys. Moranchuk is locked up through 2027, option 2028. Sleesh is here through 2028, fully guaranteed. Cleek is done at the end of the year. That was just a rental, and I believe Muyumba is guaranteed through next season with an option for 27. So they're going to have to do a bit more work than just using the roster decisions to make some moves in the midfield.
So very likely, maybe they do add a center back, because I think that's the problem. And I think last time we were together, we talked about this, was that you have enough roster spots opening up in the winter that it almost makes it impossible to be able to go out and fill all them in one window.
Yeah.
And no one likes to hear Garth Lagerwey hop on the radio and say, we need 3 more windows or 4 more windows, because people write that down. They write it down on their wall and say, he said, this is how many windows are left until we're competing.
Right.
So you've got to start working on this team for next year. And I was talking to some traveling Atlanta fans, and there was a decent amount for a Wednesday in Columbus there. A lot of them left at halftime, though, I will tell you that. There was a very large group of fans that ended up leaving. But I was talking to Glenn from Five Takes, part of Atlanta United TV, and I told him, I said, I don't think we're coming back, and I personally meant coming back to Atlanta to see another game. I'm not paying for the flight to see this team again. And he was actually he's like yeah, there's no way coming back. But he was talking about the playoffs.
Yeah.
And making the playoffs there, and it feels like they're not going to be able to fix this. Now, let's go back to last summer. Around this time, because I think we felt the same way. Pineda, I don't remember what day Pineda was out, but I mean, things weren't working well then. Does this feel worse than last season? And I know it's a completely different situation, I guess, because at that time around this time you got rid of your 2 DP players, and then you got rid of your coach. But does this feel worse now than it does last season?
I'm not sure if it's recency bias that's telling me it feels worse this year, or if it's the vast amount more that we spent trying to win now this year. I think the thing about last year that made it harder is you had a coach and you had players that had been together long enough that chemistry was not an excuse. And so I think, this year we're seeing a lot of things go wrong. And I think people are right to feel deeply disappointed by how this season has gone. It's, even with the issues that we've had, we shouldn't be near the bottom of the table. Like, we haven't had nearly the issues that the Galaxy have had, and they've got every reason to have some perspective on what's a lost season for them. But for us, it's just lack of performance. It's guys not showing up, not having consistency, looking like individuals instead of looking like a team. And at a certain point, you can only wait for so long on that, and fans can only continue to be frustrated until they stop caring. Like I saw, Jack is talking about in the comments there that he's checked out. I don't blame Jack for that. I think a lot of people are struggling to subject themselves to this team, and that's why I didn't watch the second half live, because there are enough things going on in the world to not have to do that if you don't, if you're just sitting on your couch at home. So yeah, I think it hurts more this year just because from following this team from the very beginning, from the earliest signings, when they brought Carlton and those guys out on the stage to introduce the jersey. It's a far cry from the team that we fell in love with in 2018 and 2017, and I think that's why so many fans are feeling like it's not just disappointment; it's just feeling disinterested at a certain point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right now you're in the middle of summer,
Yeah.
and there's just so many things to do, especially on the weekends here. Like I was so happy just because it was like, all right, I'm not going to be in the house watching this game, getting upset because you knew it was going to be a complete breakdown on Saturday if Miami ended up playing Atlanta. Like you were going to
Mhm.
be there, then you knew what the spaces were going to be like. You just knew that it just wasn't going to um, be a fun time for this game. But that's the problem that we talked about a lot last year. And now I feel like it's even worse because, we've talked about it before, but a lot of people opted out of their season tickets.
Mhm.
Um, so and that was with the price increase. Now we haven't heard the if there is going to be a price increase next year. Garth says that they are still looking into that. I don't believe that. I
Mhm.
believe that that's probably already set. But it would be a nice gesture if they did not. But
Yeah.
think of how much you got the fans amped because you went and you spent the money, and the money that you spent has not worked out. And they have talked about not replacing, um, having no desire to replace um, Ronnie D. I mean,
Yeah.
they claim that they are sticking to him.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a tough place to be, because having consistency as you go into a window, as you go into the winter with who your leadership group is really important, and we haven't felt that. We haven't really had that to initiate a rebuild with our core leadership group, our core philosophy in place in a while. And um, I don't know. I've seen so much of a debate within the fan base between the people who are writing and talking about this team, about how much responsibility is on the coach, how much is on front office, how much is on the players, and I think there's plenty to go around here. And feel like if I'd be working in the industry if I had the answer for this. I don't. I really don't. I don't know whether it's right to keep him or not, but I do understand the value of having a lot of your pieces in place instead of having to wait until the last second to hire your coach again, like what they did with Dyla, hiring him after they'd made all their roster decisions, by a few weeks, and going into the year without a clear sense of oh, is this the system that we're going to be playing, and do we have the guys to fit that system? Because I think we saw in the preseason and the opening matches the kind of high pressing, proactive, aggressive style of soccer that Dyla wanted, and the guys didn't have the fitness to play that. They were getting worn out. They were getting hurt. They were getting beat because they didn't have the sharpness they needed early on. And so we've reverted for a wide variety of reasons to this more absorb and counter style of play that you do when you're desperate. You do when you know you're the weaker team. And that's not satisfying for a lot of fans because we're not executing on the counters, on the good chances that we get. We're not making the other teams pay. And so at a certain point, I want to see what this group can do when as many of the pieces are in place for them to try to build what their vision is. And that's what this winter offers is a chance to have a clean slate mostly, and a chance to build around a new vision for what Atlanta United can be. And if next year we're also struggling, then sure, move on. But at this point, we've been bad for so long that what's one more season if we can take a little bit more time to get it right. But I think we need to be honest, as a fan base. I mean, I think the club needs to be honest and transparent in its intentions. And if we are going to be rebuilding, if we are going to take a little bit longer before being a top 4 team, I think that's a conversation that needs to be out in the public for them to say, yeah, we're putting in the building blocks to have success that can be sustainable instead of just being in constant win now.
And that's a good point, because you're going to have to say something here as you get toward the summer, whether it's at the end of the transfer window, coming home from this road trip, especially if this road trip ends potentially where we think that it might end, and that is with no wins, potentially with no points, which is maybe even worse than I think what some of us thought. But these are the 2 games
Mhm.
coming up that we thought we had some potential of at least getting something there. But we've said this before. Oh, there, I got some Malay on me there. Felt like I was in the Blair Witch Project for a minute. You you you're pay the people that you worry the most about are your season ticket holders. They're the ones that pay the money for the season tickets. They are the ones that show up, pay for food, pay for everything there. They're buying merch, all of that. And if you are going to stick with Ronnie Dyla throughout this, you need to give yourself a full explanation on why you're doing that. Because if they're saying we're sticking with him and we're like until the end of the season, or they might even say until we're keeping him next season as well. They already made that decision. What You might get people opting out. You might get more people opting out of tickets, and they had a lot last year. From my understanding, is that they had a decent amount of people opting out. So if you have that and you tell them that we're not changing anything, that's a real bad look. And then if you're saying that it's the roster, then that has got to be Garth Lagerwey saying, I messed up on this roster. Here, it's not the coach. I picked the coach, but it's not the coach. It's the DPs that I paid for. It's just the core of the team, because a lot of these players were picked up when it was just Garth Lagerwey on his own. I mean, Henderson came in there, but that wasn't like right away in the off season there. So a lot of this is on Garth Lagerwey here. He can't blame Carlos Bocanegra for a lot of this stuff. Now there are still quite a few players that are on here from before when Garth got here, but still, you are going to have to admit to the fans that you messed up, and I'm not sure exactly how that's going to go there, but the right now you've got to be playing. What's the word I'm looking for? Um, Panic? No. Damage control. You have to do damage control to this
Yeah.
organization right now, because it really is at its lowest. Now, COVID, the COVID year was absolutely terrible. We know that. There were some excuses with that though.
Mhm.
Your best player in franchise history was out for the year. It was COVID, so like really nobody got blamed for COVID seasons, like except uh, our coach Frank. Frank was the only one that was really blamed for
Yeah.
anything during the COVID year. But like other like this has to feel like this is at the lowest of this franchise at the moment.
So, to your point on 2020, I think roster construction was a massive problem that year. That, losing Joseph just really showed how poorly constructed that 2020
Yeah,
roster was. Uh, because that's when the turnover started, when they were trying to remake the team in DeBoer's image, and we lost so many vital players to the culture and to the style of play that fans came to love in those first 3 years. We saw a team where they got not even subpar players in those second and third string positions that were forced in, and the team just looked bad. They looked lost, um, and worse than that, the style of play was
yeah,
boring. And the worst thing you can do coming off of watching the way Tata, they weren't always the prettiest games, but they were fun. And the worst thing you can do is bore people who are used to excitement. And um, I think that was a big lesson for this organization that potentially taught them the wrong thing. It taught them that we need excitement. We need to grab people's attention. We need every year to be a playoff or a championship hunt year, and we can't take the time to invest and build and try to put in the building blocks that successful organizations are able to do, because every single transfer window has to be a hit. Every single DP has to be the next big thing, and um, you have to be in win now mode constantly. And that's why we burn through all of these coaches. That's why we burn through all of these DPs, and that's why we've had extremely imbalanced and, as Omar says, hodgepodge rosters. We've had rosters that are made up of different visions as they do false start resets over
yeah.
time. And I think we need a good faith um, reset that is willing to go the course and deal with the discomfort. And a big part of that is playing the guys who you expect to have next year. So I think the coach knows who he wants to keep for next year. So let's try and develop those guys. Let's build chemistry between those guys and start rotating out the guys who you're able to move in the summer for players who can be around.
Yeah, and it just sucks that Fortune's out for the season because you'd love to be able to
Yeah,
see more of him, and with him out, that's just a little level of frustration there because yeah, I don't want to see Click play anymore at all.
no.
Miamba, I would like to see more of because I think that we've seen improvement this
Hmm.
season. Um, Maybe not all the way from when he first came here, but it's the best he's looked since coming into that team for that last, fourth of the season, whatever it was. So you'd like to be able to build on that. Mayumba, Riley, Fortune, um, but you're not going to be able to see that right now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to be happening here in the next month. I mean, we're already starting to see some rumors out there for Atlanta United, but I hope we continue seeing them. I hope that we start getting some rumors with some U22s as well. I know that would excite
Hmm.
everyone here because, I mean, you've got two spots. You are very likely going to have a third. There's a very, very 1% chance that Mascara is on this roster next season. So start building on what you can here. I would be shocked. I know they didn't really want to go dip their foot back into the U22 spot right away. but they're there and you have money. And
Yeah.
taking shots there, I feel more comfortable with because maybe they're not as expensive, but I mean, still, they're roster spots that don't count really towards the cap. So you're going to be able to take a couple shots there. But I mean, you need some like a wing here right now. If you don't want to go out and spend some money on an MLS, left wing, then go out there and get a U-22 that would be able to play some
Yep.
time here. And for the love of God, if we do not start Saba for the rest of this
Yeah.
road trip, I am going to lose my mind.
Yep.
Now, Brooks Lennon scored, so we can't talk too much trash. I mean, he did score that goal, which is great, but still, it is Saba out in the summer? Is Saba out at the end of this season? I mean, I think he's got value. He scored when he went to go play for Georgia.
Yeah, God, that's hard. I mean, he's a guy who feels like his heart and soul is here. He feels like he's committed, and he has struggled to do that final move that gets him a goal this year. And I think you saw that when he came on in the second half against Columbus. He had a few nice runs or a nice first touch, and then would play himself into a really bad angle, or play himself out of an opportunity, or had one touch that was way too heavy and made it easy for the defender to recover on what was a great breakaway up the right flank. And um, I don't know what's up with him. I mean, like so many of these guys on the team, they are playing below their ability. They're playing below what they're able to do with their national teams, and at a certain point, they're making each other worse. And I don't think that's entirely. I think part of that might be the tactical alignment, but I think some of that is just how these guys interact, or how they feel pressure to overcome each other at times. And yeah, he's a guy. Like, I know there are quite a few fan accounts who love to track former players who are excelling in other leagues, and love to do the "I told you so." This guy was amazing, and I think Saba is going to be one of those guys who's going to do very well with whatever team if he's on the move, he's going to do very well. He's still got a year under contract, and I think he'd be a phenomenal MLS player if another team wanted to bring him on for a year and a half. Do a baseball style trade where you've got a guy for the stretch run here in 2025, and you've got him for the entirety of next year, like LAFC or a team like that. I think could really use him as a dynamic spark off the bench. But yeah, I don't know. He's a guy I would like to keep, but at the same time, I don't really know what the team's vision for his future is in this
Yeah.
case.
I mean, if he leaves, I would be very upset, just considering that we know what he can do
Hmm.
here. But I was watching
Yeah.
San Diego. I did like there are some days I do sit down on Saturdays when Atlanta United is not on and say, I'm going to watch some other teams there. And I look at teams that have way less time together, way less experience with each other, that their offense can just look so fluid. I mean, I tweeted it out, like the passing with San Diego. It was just fun to watch. They were able to
Hmm.
come back, win the game yesterday. So much fun to watch. Like, I don't understand how a lot of these guys have been together for so long, and it looks, and we said this last season, it looks like it's a bunch of strangers on the field. It really does. It looks like these guys have just met up for the first time. It's like an all-star game where you've got 24 hours to practice. And this looks worse than an all-star game at times because it's
Hmm.
it's like nobody knows what they're doing on the field. And we've been saying this for years that it's different coaches,
Yeah.
it's different players, and something needs to be fixed.
Hmm.
Someone in the Discord, I think, asked like, What do you think they need to do to like get better? Like if it's the culture, like is it just the PowerPoint when players walk in? You know, you do your open, like when you start a new job, they give you that PowerPoint to tell you about the company and what Atlanta United is. Do we just need a better PowerPoint and that's going to get these guys to understand the culture better? I don't know.
Well, I think a lot of that goes back to how you identify your players. And what San Diego has done so well is that, you know, from the beginning they understood that they fit into this larger multi-team network, and so they know what they want to be. They know how they want to play. They've got a clear vision for player roles and for the type of soccer that they're going to be plugging players and coaches into. And I think Philadelphia is doing that to some degree, and I think Vancouver is doing that, and Nancy in Columbus is doing a great job with that as well. They have a clear idea of who they are, how they want to play, and they're going out and finding players who excel in those systems. The issue with Atlanta United, I think, since we made our first coaching change, is that we had a clear idea for the style of play that we wanted, and we hired a coach who did not excel in that style of play and who didn't want to use that style of play, even though he claimed he did initially. And I think the real issue for us is that what we say we want to do does not always match with what everyone's vision for that execution would be, or the specific pieces we bring in to execute that vision. And so you've got this deeply inconsistent and often counterproductive group of talent there, who, if you plug them into a place where they can excel, if you plug them into the type of system that allows them to use their skills in a way that fits that style, then it makes sense. But I think we've got too many guys who are coming from a bunch of different styles, a bunch of different directions, trying to make them be far too versatile. And that's led to us really having no sense of what we are. You look at this in businesses, in films, and in any kind of creative endeavor. If you don't know who you are, then you're not going to have a quality product. You're not going to have a quality film, and usually your team is going to be confused and is going to be risk averse. And I think this constant win now mode and this constant kind of ping ponging around trying to figure out how to bring in the right guys for a system that we don't fully understand or haven't adequately committed to in execution is partially based on this deeply risk averse, fear based system, which may be a fear of the fans to some degree, a fear of the kind of backlash and disappointment that can come from us, and the desire to keep rolling that incredible high that we got to in our first 3 years.
Yeah. I mean, even with Frank DeBoer, it was the same thing, right? I mean, we're still gonna be high flying. We learned that they weren't high flying. It took till mid-season when there was kind of a revolt against
Yeah.
I mean, you have players complaining on ESPN of, this is not the Atlanta United, because Atlanta United was at the top of the MLS world that season there, and it really took some changes, and it took Frank um, that All-Star break and picking up Justin Merrim and Joseph going on a crazy offensive tear that it got them to a goal away from MLS Cup there. And I just don't I
Mhm.
don't see that change there, because I think when you had Joseph Martinez on your team, there was always that opportunity of a change. There was a chance that all of a sudden things could start clicking. You had to believe that because you knew what Joseph Martinez was. You knew that that guy would do anything in the world to score a goal here. And look, I saw that from Latte Lath in this last game. Did
Mhm.
he not score? No, but you saw when he was running and that defender, I forget which defender it was, ran him down into that corner that was right in front of us. I mean, Latte Lath wanted to knock him out. I mean, I think he got a yellow for it, but I mean, it could have been more. I mean, he was very, very upset, and that wasn't, I think, upset with the defender. I think it's just frustration of this entire season, that he wasn't able to outrun him and score that goal. Like that was months of frustration leading into that play right there, and it was just unfortunate because that later in the game, like we've talked about, he misses that shot where he had a very good opportunity of being able to put that in there. It's frustrations all around here. But you got 2 games left before you return to Mercedes-Benz Stadium against Chicago. We are going to talk about that game on Wednesday and hope that there's something there with this team that they're going to be able to get 3 points. Maybe maybe they keep the same uh 3 center backs there, and maybe they're just hoping that maybe they figured things out after going out there against one of the best offensive teams in the league, and hoping that it could settle. But you need to see something more from this team, and specifically in the first 45 minutes of this game, and hopefully it's not a change where they play a really good first half and then they play a terrible second half, just the reverse roles there. But you
Mhm.
have to hope that they go into this game next week with a little bit more rest than DC, because you didn't have to play on Saturday. Hopefully this gives them a little bit of time to be able to figure things out here. If not, I mean, there's got to be some changes, obviously here, and I think one of the things that we do need to talk about, which we haven't had a chance, and we'll talk about on Wednesday, is the salary cap guy came out, and there were a lot of screaming.
Mhm.
Congratulations to Miguel Almiron for for uh, for
Yeah.
being one of the highest paid players in MLS. Tyler, I think Tyler was the reason for that, because I think Garth Lagerway and
Mhm.
Miguel Almiron's agent watched Tyler talk about how he's a top 3 winger or whatever he said it was, and they said if Tyler Pilgrim
Uh,
says that Miguel Almiron is a top 3 winger in MLS, we got to pay him like a top 3 player in the league. So I blame Tyler for all of this.
yeah.
For,
Yeah.
I mean,
That's fair.
what else can you do at this point?
That's
You got to
fair.
blame someone. So we're going to blame Tyler for this. But yeah,
Absolutely.
it's going to be an interesting week for this team, and got to hope for the best.
Yeah, I think so. And I think what we had in 2019 that we don't have today is that core group of players who are built around that system that they can switch into and find success. We don't have that, and so that's what we have to start building.
Absolutely. Well, all right. I think we're going to get going here. I'm going to go. I think last time they played, it was probably one of the best games of the season, but I want to go watch. Um, oh, now I'm getting super blurry. I want to go watch the Vancouver LAFC game. I think last time they played was like a 2-2 draw and it was great. So I'm gonna go check that game out. But yeah, great. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having
All
me.
right, guys. Well, come hang out with us. I don't know if Tyler's doing MLS Monday tomorrow. I believe he is. And then come hang out with us Wednesday, and we will talk about the game and the salary guide. So, on behalf of all of us,